And now, the time fight fans all across the globe have been waiting for. It's the main card with your man, The Voice. As always, in the opposite corner, my mano y mano, my verbal sparring partner. You see the hat. You see it's a little faded because we got the whole green screen going on. But that's all right because we still hot like that. None other than Wildress. Rough. What's going on, Iron Man? I ain't called you that in a minute.
Yeah, it's been a minute, man. It's smoke o'clock, Voice. And shout out to you, man, because you did call us out on Monday. Because Miles asked me to ask, what time it was, smoke o'clock. It is registered. You know what I mean? This is a main card thing.
But copyright infringement.
Everybody want the sauce, though. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the main card. It's me with your man, the myth, the legend, the man with his own T-shirt. But today he got the SCL hat on, so you don't see the halo over his head.
And the Gateway City UFC shirt. Just putting it all together.
I mean, do your thing, man. I got on the Andre 3000 shirt on right now. So,
okay.
You know what I mean? We there. But we got an amazing show for y'all today, man. We're going to get into some dope things, man. Of course, we got your man Canelo, who's also out here on the brink. UFC 305 is big things going on, man. But let's first start off with KOs and low blows. Voice, you ready?
Man, I'm ready like the Mexican fan base is for Mexican Independence Day.
That's perfect, because that's the first thing we're going to get into. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, it's a big weekend for combat sports. Mexican Independence Day now has a face-off this Saturday as UFC 305 and the Canelo Berlanga bout is going to be going head-to-head, both in the same city. Now, Canelo Berlanga is actually going to be happening. I believe that's actually going to be happening in the T-Mobile Arena, correct?
Yep. That's T-Mobile.
And then for the first time, UFC 305 is going to be taking place in the Sphere, which is a huge deal. But one person who does not care about the Canelo fight, you guessed it, Oscar De La Hoya. He said, listen, we're a week away from the boxing match that nobody asked for and the UFC event that everyone will be watching. He said, now I love the sport of boxing more than anything. I will be watching boxing matches anywhere and anytime, even if it's a simple sparring session or two bums fighting in the street. So the idea that I'm choosing to attend UFC and support Dana White instead of Canelo tells you everything that you need to know.
Wow.
Now, but let Dana White tell it, he don't know what he's talking about. He said, I don't know where he's getting his tickets from, but he definitely isn't getting them from me. I don't know. Maybe he's coming with the Turkish or what his deal is. But yeah, I saw that. It's him trying to, in other words, crap on Canelo. And I said it a million times. I respect Canelo. I like Canelo. Met him. He's a nice guy. And I'm saying that night. We're talking about the history of Mexico and the history of the people and their traditions and the impact that they've had on combat sports. So somebody said to me, so you'll be celebrating Canelo that night, right? Yes, we are. Canelo's a big part. He's a big part of the night. Julio Cesar Chavez, Salvador Sanchez. How are you going to do all that? The baddest dudes that have ever come out of Mexico and not talk about Canelo too. Voice. Oscar is messy. Of course, again. And for the first time, I feel like in life, I'm defending Dana White, and I don't know how to feel about it. What is your take on this, Voice, and what do you think about these two actually going head-to-head in the same city?
As far as it going head-to-head in the same city, this is Vegas. It's a big city. It's a tourist attraction. People come there for certain things. They come to see the Blue Man Group. They come to ride the gondola. I can't even say it. The gondola at the Venetian. And they come to see fights as well as other sporting events. So the people that are coming there for Canelo are going to be coming there for Canelo. And the people that are coming there for the Sphere are going to be coming there for the Sphere. When Noche UFC kicked off last year, it was the first time that the UFC decided, hey, let's do something around Mexican Independence Day because historically, this has been a huge day for fights. Canelo has fought on this day many times. Floyd Mayweather really kind of helped to usher in this trend of fighting on Mexican Independence Day. So when the UFC started doing it, it was like, okay, well, that means they're going to be going head to head because this is taking place in the Sphere. That's the reason, or I should say, it's one of the main reasons why you got both of these things going on in Vegas, because you got T-Mobile, unless somebody's going to go to MGM Grand Garden Arena, which doesn't get used that much anymore. The ability to have multiple cars in the same city, at the same time would be a little difficult. I mean, as much as there is crossover between the two fan bases, there's still enough fans that will be specifically looking for MMA versus looking for Canelo. The only place where it could hurt a little bit, and I say a little bit for real, is in Mexico. And that's because in Mexico, Canelo fights on free-to-air TV, where the UFC does not. But outside of that, I mean, that's about the biggest thing. As far as them being there in the US, the people who will come into Noche will come to Noche, and those who are going to see Canelo will going to see Canelo. Now, what is interesting is how Golden Boy, talking about some I'm going here and all that. That's why I was like, whoa, because it is known how much Dana and Oscar don't like each other, which is why Dana was like, well, maybe he's coming with Turkey, because Turkey is putting this on. This is a Riyadh season card. It's like, but he sure didn't get those tickets from me, and I love Canelo, and you're gonna see Canelo in the Sphere. So it's funny. It's really, really funny. But it shows you that hatred runs deep in the heart of the Golden Boy, and the greatest hatred he has is for Canelo.
I mean, I just don't understand it. They almost seem like they on that Kendrick Drake, Drew McIntyre, CM Punk level with the way that they're going at each other. To say that you literally dislike someone so much that you're gonna go and visit your enemy and his promotion, what he's doing, says a lot. But for me, I just feel like it almost takes away from the importance of the moment. Like, this is a huge moment, not only for just, the whole thing about them celebrate Mexican Independence Day, but this is just a huge moment for combat sports just in general. I mean, you have boxing and you have the UFC in the same city, in such a major city, putting on two major events. Why can't we just celebrate them all? But either way, excited to see everything that's going to happen. Excited to see what happens when Oscar, of course, probably comes on the screen at that UFC event. So shout out to TKO, also owners of the WWE. That's going to be awesome. Make sure y'all following The Voice, because we're going to be talking about that. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit later.
All right. Speaking of TKO, I almost said TKE, and I think I was combining TBE with TKO. Either way it goes, since we're talking a little crossover action, we got some crossover action going on, of course, on the main card. This is not the Voices title match today. This is Rick's ring buckle, and I don't mean Ric Flair. I mean our sometime producer, Rick Sincere. Salute to Rick Sincere. Let me stop playing, because all these wonderful, beautiful slides and stuff, overlays he did do. He may not be pushing the buttons in the background, but he's definitely still contributing to the main card. Anyway, Ric Flair, my favorite wrestler of all time, was recently sharing his personal Mount Rushmore. And on that Mount Rushmore, he had the people that you see on the screen. He had Hogan, understandable. He had, Stone Cold Steve Austin, understandable. He has two wrestlers that there's a argument for, but to choose these two and leave out some of the notable people, in the history of the game, like a a Rock, or like even a John Cena, to leave them out and to include these people, Coco Beware, I know your favorite wrestler of all time, to leave them out.
Coco Beware was the man, so I'm not even mad at that.
Okay, well, I was mad at that bird, but anyway, but to leave these people out, Bret the Hitman Hart, and go with Undertaker and the Heartbreak Kid, kind of has me scratching my head. So, what are your thoughts about who Rick chose?
I'm gonna be honest. Your Mount Rushmore wrestlers are always dependent upon your personal preference. You can't go wrong with this list. Me personally, Hulk Hogan's not on my list. I've never been one of those people where I was like, Hulk Hogan's my favorite wrestler, and then finding out who he was 30, 40 years later, it literally solidifies how right that I was, that he shouldn't have been. Shout out to Macho Man Randy Savage, who to me was the greatest of all time in the 80s. Anyway, I mean, Undertaker is literally the epitome of kayfabe wrestling. Like, Undertaker is a man who stayed as himself, as the Undertaker, everywhere he went for almost 35 years, and recently just broke and let people behind the curtain in his podcast, which is amazing if you haven't heard that. Also, Stone Cold, of course. I mean, Stone Cold is literally the epitome of the Attitude Era. While yes, you can say The Rock, you can't say Attitude Era without Stone Cold. Stone Cold is a catalyst for the reason why The Rock was where he was. And the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, greatest of all time. I'm not arguing with anybody. Greatest of all time. As a matter of fact, they all asked me before the show to provide my Mount Rushmore, so I'm going to give you mine, and I'm going to tell you a real quick reason why. Shawn Michaels, like I said, greatest of all time. He's on the Mount Rushmore. Eddie Guerrero, the perfect combination of size and speed, and the representation that he held for luchadors and Mexican wrestling all over is amazing. Eddie is the epitome of what happens when opportunity meets timing, because when he came to WWE, he had a great career in Mexico and also in WCW. He's wrestled some in ECW also, but he catapulted in WWE, and it's one of the few people to beat Brock Lesnar for that world title, and it's one of the greatest moments ever for me. Roman Reigns. Whether you like Roman Reigns or not, Roman Reigns has been on top for over a decade, and not only led us through the pandemic era, but the tribal chief character, maybe top 3 heels of all time, and I'm not talking 2 or 3. That doesn't make a difference for me. And rounding it off was hard for me because, like I said, I love Macho Man Randy Savage. Macho Man is everything. But it's impossible not to pick Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold Steve Austin has t-shirts right now that we were wearing when we were 10 years old that are still significant today. His awesome podcast, just what he did for the culture of wrestling and bringing people behind. And Stone Cold to me was a catalyst for what real life storylines were. Stone Cold is amazing. Let us know what your Mount Rushmore is, Royce. I definitely want to hear yours if you have one. I know it's probably like Brutus the Barber Beefcake, somebody, but it's all subjective of who was the greatest to you.
All right. Well, you know, my wrestling fandom ended at the turn of the century, and I mean 2000. So for me, it's Sting. Man, Sting, Flair. It's kind of hard after that. Those were the two that really were it for me. And I go back. I go all the way back with Sting. I go back to when he was Rock wrestling with Stein. It was Rock and Ice. That's how far back I go with Sting. I'm kind of stumped after that, but yeah, those two, definitely, really were my word. I will put the excellence of execution in there too, because Bret Hart was just like phenomenal, man.
If I could have had a fifth, Bret Hart was my fifth. Y'all already know from Full 94. When I do Mount Rushmore, it's 5 people. Bret Hart would have been fifth. He would have been right outside of it. Amazing career. He was actually just on Monday Night Raw this past Monday. An amazing wrestler. But like I said, let us know in the comments who your Mount Rushmore is. What did you think of my Mount Rushmore? What did you think of Voices Half Rushmore? Get in there and let us know.
That's all I need is 3. And put myself up there. No, you know what? $1 Million Man, just because of who he is as a person, not necessarily the wrestling aspect, but really he was one of the first wrestlers to show how much that wrestling lifestyle impacts your real life. So for that purpose, I say $1 Million Man. And I remember when he was back in the UFW. That's where I go way back. Dr. Death.
It's difficult because for me, like even like my favorite of all time is Bray Wyatt, which you know, rest in peace to him. But then of course there's Bray Wyatt. For me, there's also Big E. So it just kind of depends. But for me, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Snooker,
do a top 10 easily. Superfly Jimmy Snooker.
Yeah, and the Dragon.
Oh, Ricky Steamboat.
Yeah.
One of the greatest Intercontinental matches of all time.
I might have to put Ricky on there. And then Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, but we got to go. So, and I wasn't trying to rhyme, you know, that just happens from time to time. So, join us for this Ozell break. When we get back, we're going to dive into the showdown in the desert, the squaring off in Sin City, which is PBC putting on the Canelo Berlanga bout versus UFC Noche. Keep it locked. It's the main card.
It's not just about the love of the game. It's about dedication and commitment through the process and the patience to endure. There's joy in reaching your goals and peace in knowing you've done all you're supposed to do. Ozell brand. It's not just a brand, it's a lifestyle.
Awesome. Welcome back, man. Shout out to Ozell brand. Shout out to that amazing commercial. Always makes you want to run through the wall once you hear it, man. It's football season. Make sure y'all get y'all cleats on. Now, voice. Your man Canelo is a wanted man and possibly the most disliked man in boxing these days. From the claims that he's dodging fights to his back and forth with Oscar De La Hoya, you can now add his upcoming challenger, Edgar Berlanga, to the list. Now, the 27-year-old undefeated boxer known and dubbed as the Chosen One will face arguably boxing's best when he meets Canelo for his WBA, WBC, and WBO super middleweight titles at the T-Mobile Arena. Yes, the same Las Vegas that is going to see UFC 305 at the Sphere in Paradise. Now, speaking of boxing scene, the Chosen One actually stated, "I'm fighting a legend, and I'm going to become a legend. It's my time to shine. I'm destined for this. To take over the sport and become the face by defeating him and retiring him on that night. He already made his mark in the sport. People are tired of him and they want a new face." Speaking further confidently, Berlanga stated during their media conference, Canelo, he likes when people respect him. He feels like they're his dog. Like, I'm the guy that's getting you paid. He's a guy that's cocky. He's arrogant. You know, he smiles in my face. Now, where we come from, we don't respect big homies. I don't care if he's got all the titles. I'm not going to give you respect because I want your spot. And I know he's a guy that has a lot of experience, so I got to be on my A game that night, and I can't slip up or make mistakes. Now, based off Canelo's comments, you can almost understand why Edgar feels that way. Meanwhile, Canelo laughed off the feet when asked about it and stated, "I like them like that. I like them to be confident and do a lot of talking. I like breaking their face when they play like that. I'm eagerly awaiting that day. It'll be the beatdown of his life." Now, when he asked if there's a chance that Berlanga could win, Saul stated, no chance. The experience I have, the intelligence, my boxing ability, I've already won September 14th. Voice. I mean, they are talking spicy. How do we feel about the comments from both? And Berlanga's claim that, he's planning to be the chosen one and lay him flat to retire.
I like the talk that both of them are talking. They should both be talking the way that they're talking. The biggest difference, though, is one person has walked the talk and the other has yet to be in a position to walk the talk. This is just another fight for Canelo. He's faced Berlanga types many times over. This is the biggest fight of Berlanga's career and his very young career. He hasn't had a lot of fights where Canelo has. And Canelo showed in his last bout with Munguia, even if you've had a lot of fights, fighting me is a whole different ball of wax. And Munguia was a bit starstruck coming in, and it was a real big moment, and the moment got to him. Berlanga is at least acting like it's not getting to him. But let us get closer and closer to the fight to see what happens. And then on top of that, Munguia, on paper, had the better skill set. And we see what happened with him. Berlanga ran up a whole lot of knockouts. That's what he was known for. All these knockouts. And he was supposed to be the next Puerto Rican Day Parade fighter. And then Top Rank let him go. So it's interesting the way that this is coming about. And again, for Canelo, it's just another fight. For Berlanga, it's the biggest fight of his life. Can he live up to the hype? Can he rise to the occasion? We know Canelo can. On that end, though, Canelo's been doing this for a long time. And the one fighter that is undefeated is Father Time. At some point, Canelo's going to get old. Is this the fight that he gets old against this young, hungry, up-and-comer? We'll know when they step into the squared circle and face off.
Now, I love that you talked about Berlanga's knockouts, Voice, because he comes in undefeated. There's 17 KOs there, but he's only had one TKO in, I believe, one of his last 6 bouts, which actually saw him win that round 6 TKO against, I believe that's Padredge McCoy. I mean, should we still expect him to come in with that power since he really hasn't shown it in his last 6 or 7 fights?
A lot of times power it pertains to the level of fight that the person has. As you go up in the ranks and you start facing stiffer competition, if you have true power, then it'll carry. But if you don't have that true power, then you'll see, things kind of wane. And that's what we've seen with Berlanga. Had that wonderful knockout streak. And then as he started fighting some more notable competition, and it's not even like the competition was that much more notable, but as he started fighting up a bit, then that knockout streak ended. And if there's one thing Canelo has, it's a chin.
Definitely. I mean, that's going to be a great fight. I love the spiciness. If you got a chance to watch the media scrum that they had, it was amazing. The back and forth is always great, but Canelo always gives you kind of a show before the show. So be sure to watch, to be checking out The Voice on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days, for those updates, because I'm sure he's going to have that back and forth. Now, Voice, title or no title, a main card favorite, Sean O'Malley, is always going to be confident. And ahead of his second UFC Bantamweight Championship defense against Merab Dvalishvili. Okay.
A for effort. A for effort.
I was close.
Yeah, you super close. Good. You super close.
Dvalishvili. Okay. Was that close?
That's even close.
Hey, it is. It is what it is.
What we're gonna get today.
But he's no different here. Now, the event is taking place in the Sphere in Paradise, Nevada, and is being dubbed as UFC 305 Riyadh Season Noche UFC. And this is the second edition celebrating the Mexican Independence Day and the first to have a title partner for its sponsor, which is Saudi Arabia's General Entertainment Authority. Now, Sugar and the Machine are going to be facing off in the octagon in a match with bad blood, voice. But it's all stemming from the main event of UFC 292. And this saw O'Malley defeat Merab's teammate Sterling, something that the Machine is ready for. And he even stated that he is willing to fight anybody. He stated O'Malley, he tried to be a bully. He tried to talk blank, but he didn't know that doesn't work on me. I'm going to beat him more because of that. And he's been bullying. He's been disrespectful to me and my team. And I won't be sad when I beat him. He stated he's good, but he's got lucky. He said, I wish the fight was tomorrow. And looked at O'Malley and said, O'Malley, you better show up. If you don't show up, I'm going to fight your coach, Tim. Now, Sean, meanwhile, he's touted this fight voice as a nightmare matchup for Merab, while also showing respect to the spot that he has in the division. He said, I would say stylistically, I'm a nightmare matchup for him. He's ranked number 1. He's on a 10-fight win streak. The only reason he's never fought for a title or was never the champion is because of Aljamain Sterling. He's as dangerous as it gets. He's a cardio machine, and he doesn't get tired. He has been rocked a few times, but he's got a good chin. Now, it's one thing that people are talking about this bout, but people have also asked Sean how it feels to main event in the Sphere, which is something that's happening for the first time and may not happen again. He stated he needs everyone to understand that this is a business and he's focused. I'm going to show up, get into an octagon, the same octagon I always step into, and do what I do. The whole presentation, the whole show, I'm ready. I'm really not going to enjoy it like a bystander. For me, I'm laser focused, tunnel vision, kill me rap. That's all that's on my mind. And I don't really care about all that extra stuff. It's cool for the fans, but I have a mission. Voice, they're going back and forth. I know we talked about UFC 292 when it happened, and we did talk about Sean O'Malley showboating a bit. What do you think about the statements from these two fighters going into this bout?
I love it. I absolutely love the way, and before the show started, I was getting ready for everything, putting on my STL bubble bone, getting all good looking for y'all, make sure you send them to your ladies. Anyway, when I was getting ready, I was thinking about and listening to the very words that you just spoke of that came from Merab Dvalishvili. And I was thinking about how he's been preparing for this fight much longer than when he, being O'Malley, beat his teammate in Aljamain Sterling. He's been preparing for this fight much longer than that. He's been preparing for this fight since his UFC debut. In that debut, when he got the mic, you know who he called out? Sugar Sean O'Malley. And fights after that, you know who he kept calling out? Sugar Sean O'Malley. Which is the reason why I chose this picture of Merab, even though this wasn't the one that happened when he took his jacket in the ring and was dancing around in it. And Shaw was so focused on Aljo, he didn't realize that Merab was over there with his jacket. Then he got all mad. But he has been hankering for this fight for quite some time, and the day has come. So it's not just him getting the opportunity to finally fight for the title, because Aljo doesn't have it. This is a fight that he's wanted his entire UFC career. And here's the thing with Merab. He's often been overlooked. When Merab got his contract for the UFC, it was on an episode of Dana White's Looking for a Fight. Who was Merab facing? He was facing Nigel's own stand up. I should have got my picture with him and put it in for this segment, but it just came to my mind, so I wasn't able to do that. But he was fighting the former interim bantamweight champion of Bellator in Rafian Stotts, and they were really there to see Rafian, and Merab knocked him out. And Merab is not really a knockout artist, but that's what happened. Again, Rafian went on to do his thing, make his name in Bellator, and now Merab has the opportunity to stamp his legacy as a champion. So again, he's been on the that side of things before, and what's really going to be interesting is seeing how he reacts in the moment. O'Malley is preparing for a cardio war, and he should be, because he's the machine. But will Merab implement said cardio in the proper way? That's the question, because we see what happened with O'Malley when he faced his teammate, being Aljo. Aljo was coming forward. He started reaching, and O'Malley, with the step back shot, was teaching. And he's looking, the whole time, he's looking to land that perfect shot. The drawback with that, though, is you've got to look for that the whole fight, which means you're not being offensive. So if you don't land, the likelihood of winning is slim to none.
I mean, we're bound to find out. UFC 305 is going to be amazing. And one thing that we have to remember, Merab is 17-4. He has not tasted defeat, voice, since 2018. Like Sean said, he's 10-0 since. His last loss was a 2020 TKO to Marlon Vera, and with every fight after that has either been fight of the night or performance of the night. So we're definitely in for something really, really big. That's going to be UFC 305. But that's not the only main event on the card, voice. If you remember, last year's No Shade event was Grasso versus Shevchenko. And we're hoping for Valentina the Bullet. This time, she's actually hoping that the third time's a charm. She's going to be facing Alexia Grasso for the UFC Women's Flyweight Championship again. This is going to be the trilogy fight. Now, if you remember, in the two previous encounters, Grasso emerged victorious by submission, and then their last bout, it ended in a controversial draw. Now, this is something that has stuck with Shevchenko, as she said that she firmly believes she won that fight, stating, if I'm speaking seriously, you know why we're here talking about a third fight? It's only because the second fight, everyone saw the fight. Everyone knows. Everyone was very surprised because of the mistake in the error of a judge. Boy, she went on to say, if it were not for him, everyone saw that I was the winner that night. I did enough to win the fight, like 3 rounds from the 5. It was enough to win the fight, and it's the only reason why we're talking about it at this point. Now, Shevchenko is a seasoned veteran, voice. 28 pro MMA fights, 16 of those in the UFC. She's literally built a legacy as one of the greatest women fighters in the sport's history. Now, despite that, some people are actually questioning if she can still overcome Grasso, and if she loses, if she should actually retire. Now, one thing that Shevchenko stated is she thrives in proving her doubters wrong, and she said that she's entering this fight with a massive chip on her shoulder. She said it's interesting, but every training camp is different. Every fight week is different. And even comparing one of the best fights that I had, every time was different, like how I felt. But I know for sure that in terms of making a statement, making one of the greatest fights, is too much pressure on your shoulders. It's not good. And sometimes it can make you freeze and you cannot do anything. And voice, I mean, she's talking confidently, but also it almost sounds like she's talking almost as a what if. What are your thoughts on Shevchenko's statement that, hey, she should have won that fight in the second bout?
The beauty of close fights is that we're able to have these kinds of conversations. That fight was very close. In the moment, I felt like Bullet probably got it, but it was so close that it being a draw was not, it wasn't like out of the question. So often when it comes to close fights, people will scream robbery, robbery, robbery. It's not a robbery if it's close. It's a robbery if it's clear that one person won the fight and then they didn't win it. I.e., when Gennady Golovkin was robbed of the victory in his first bout with Canelo. That was a robbery. The fight with Shevchenko was not. Or I should say the fight with Grasso was not. I'm really looking forward to this matchup because it's going to determine who the champion is, one, and who the victor is in this trilogy. Both fights have been very, very good, very hard fought and closely contested bouts. With Grasso, she headlined, and Shevchenko did too. They headlined the last UFC Noche. This time they're the co-main event, but they're still there doing it. For Grasso, you had the opportunity to state your claim as one of the greatest of all time. Really, a lot of the reason for UFC Noche happening was because of that Mexican influence. We had 3 champions at one time, but the only one that year that held on to their title was Grasso, and by the slimmest of margins. UFC Noche was created to celebrate Mexican history and to celebrate the fighting spirit of Mexico. Who better to show that fighting spirit than the champion? Who better to rally La Raza than someone who not only is of Mexican descent, lives and trains in Mexico? And I believe is probably the first full champion to do that. So it's a big moment and a big opportunity for Shevchenko. She does sound very, very confident, as she has sounded, which can be good, especially coming in off of a loss, but it also could be overconfident. Something I am concerned about for her is the fact that she has been at this for a while. And we saw my man Izzy fall in the last pay-per-view because, like Shevchenko, he had a whole fighting career before he started doing MMA, before he started practicing MMA. Same with Shevchenko. Father Time is undefeated. Will Father Time win, or will the bullet snipe one more person?
That boy got bars today. No, it's good to know that before the loss, Bullet had actually been a winner of 8 straight and had not tasted defeat since the 2017 decision to Amanda Nunes. And people are literally questioning if she should retire if she loses fight. So it'll definitely be wonderful to see. Voice, real quick, do you feel as though she should call it quits with another loss?
Yes. I do. Well, if she doesn't call it quits, I think she needs to go back up to 135 and give that one more run, because it is wide open there, and she could get that title. Because Amanda's not there now. If Amanda comes back, then she can hang it up. But with Amanda being out, if she were to lose, I think trying her hand once more at 135, one last final run and push would be the way to go.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Voice. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you are following the Voice on X at the Voice, THAVOYZE, just to make sure that you can get all the breakdown for every fight. Every week we try to break down the biggest fights of the weekend. However, we don't want to leave you with just the meat and potatoes. We want to give you those sides. So, Voice, give us your last words on the final fights that you have for us to look out for.
This weekend, because of these 2 significant cards, is just full of fights. We don't have enough time. You got Lara versus Garcia in the co-main event, and let me say this: salute to PBC, because they really put on a card. I mean, there are so many really good fights on this card. You got Lara and Garcia. You have your boy Cool Boy Steph fighting. You got Caleb Plant facing Trevor McCumbee. You got even other fights that I haven't even mentioned Rolly Romero is fighting on that card. So lots and lots of things going on. And on Noche, you got a lot of good stuff going on too, including the fight right here. You've got T-City taking on Diego Lopez. T-City is goated, or I should say he's a made man when it comes to the featherweight division in the UFC. You got Lopez, who is on the rise, both of Mexican descent. Lopez being, from Mexico, though. There's so many fights. It's too many to name, and just way too much stuff going on, including Bellator in London on the same day. So, with it being an earlier card, you get to start things off with Bellator. Leah McCourt and Sarah Collins are facing off against each other. Was in the press conference for that today. Salute to Bellator, salute to PFL, salute to their PR team for giving the main card the access to those things. And I tell you, Leah is a star, and she's the star of this card. This is the person that everyone wanted to see. This is the person that everyone wanted to talk to. And there's a lot of intrigue with this fight, because the winner could face the winner of the fight between Cyborg and Larissa Pacheco on PFL's pay-per-view later on this year. So, it is great. And the fact that these ladies were able to step up when Fabian Edwards fell out of the fight card. He was supposed to headline this one in London. He fell out due to injury. These ladies stepped up, and they are looking to make a name for themselves and show that everything fight-wise is going on Saturday isn't happening in Las Vegas.
Awesome. We have prepared you for another amazing week of combat sports. We talked about Mount Rushmore. You guys jump in the comments. Tell us what you think. Tell us how you feeling. Tell us how you like the show. Tell us what you want to see from the show. We appreciate you all for tuning in. This is MTMV Sports. We are the fans. We just come in. We just do the work. We try to give you the best of the best. We have everything that you could want, and football season upon us. So you're going to see even more content coming close. Thank you for joining us for Smoke O'Clock. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, because we go everywhere. Any podcast that you trying to find, we're there. So make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Share this with somebody. Voice another amazing show, sir. Thank you for always being my my verbal sparring partner. Take us out.
Until next time, fight the good fight.